And get started. Let me welcome you. My name is Dr. Chanel Jones. I am the Executive Director of the Center for Public Safety and Cybersecurity Education. And we also have Dr. Denise Bergstrom on here, who is a faculty affiliate with the Center for Public Safety and Cybersecurity Education. And we are getting ready to have our cybersecurity awareness panel discussion. We have put together a phenomenal group of panelists with a ton of experience and expertise that are going to talk a little bit about how to stay safe online. And so, without further ado, let's just dive right in it. We have Dr. Denise Bergstrom, John Fulton, as well as Brian LeBlanc. So, let's go ahead and start off with a round of introductions. Dr. Denise, you want to kick us off?
Great. Thank you, Chanel. I am, as she mentioned, Dr. Denise Kinsey Bergstrom. I'm the program chair for cybersecurity here at Franklin, been here for 2.5 years. I have 30 years experience in cybersecurity and IT and over 20 years in academia from a teaching associate through doctorate. So I've done a bunch of things from securing a nuclear facility when it was hit by malware to digital forensics. My latest and greatest in that was helping to rescue a kidnapped girl and just about everything in between. So definitely live and breathe cyber. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bergstrom. Let's go with Brian.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Brian LeBlanc. I'm a supervisory special agent with the FBI for the last 19 years, working counterterrorism for most of that, but also including in the cyber world as well. And so I'm an adjunct here at Franklin for the last 3.5 to 4 years, and I've been teaching cybercrime here and looking forward to this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And last but not least, John.
Well, maybe least, let's see. I'm John Fulton. I'm a full-time faculty member here at Franklin, teaching computer science, information technology, cybersecurity. Prior to that, I was an adjunct faculty member here at Franklin, teaching computer science for 10 years. I am what some universities would call a professor of practice. I have come to this position here at the university after 35 years as a programmer, a data analyst, systems analyst in private industry. I'm also, and I'll talk more about this later on, I'm also the person in my family that everybody comes to ask about, well, how do I do this with technology and how do I do that with technology? And I'm going to challenge all of you as people who are interested here today to be that person for the rest of your family with regard to cybersecurity.
Thank you. Thank you. So, as you all can see, a wealth of knowledge here amongst all of our panelists and a lot of experience. And they're probably going to get on all of us, including myself, about things we need to do to make sure we don't get hacked, we don't get our information stolen, and all of that wonderful stuff. So, let's dive right into it. Dr. Denise, let's go with you first. Beyond passwords, what are some of the biggest online security risks that people overlook in their daily lives?
Oh, that's an easy one, but an unfortunate one, because when we do not think about cybersecurity, we often become victims. So this would include making sure that we are not oversharing in social media, that we have our credit reports frozen, and that we are just being mindful of our actions, because now that we're living out loud online, actions have consequences. What we do can reign in infamy for long past our lives. I'm so glad when I was growing up that social media did not exist.
I think a lot of us are. So let's take this a little bit further. And John and Brian, I'm going to ask you to chime in on this first question. So we all probably have a social media profile. What does it look like to overshare?
I have to say that I don't share very much through social media, and it's what could someone use against you? What would somebody want to know to be able to make uh, a, an actor, uh, someone who's trying to do something nefarious, what would give them information that they needed to be able to make them think that there's someone you know? What's your boss's name? What's your spouse's name? What's your dog's name? What are your kids' names? What are the pieces of information that someone might use against you to make you think that there's someone that you know or there's someone that you're associated with? We're going to talk several times today about social engineering, about trying to make you believe that someone is someone that they're not. And that sharing of information just in general about your life, about names of things, about positions, about travel, all of those things have risks associated with them.
Thank you. And Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is oversharing. So the best example is you're going to Florida on vacation and you're posting pictures while you're there so that somebody with some bad intent sees that and says, oh, well, I know they're not home now, they're in Florida. So they go rob your house while you're away, right? So being able to be wary of that, know that. So, stay away from social media while you're on vacation. Wait to post those pictures and notifications that you're away or you're not at home until you get home. And then you can post them. But it's oversharing, things like that, the names of your children, taking a picture of your vehicle with your license plate on it, taking a picture of may have some PII information in the background. If you take a picture of something and your driver's license may be seen or anything of that nature, your social security number may get revealed. You got to be careful of that because that's where they're able to exploit that type of information very quickly. And it's really a lot of kids doing this stuff right now, and they're very tech savvy. So you need to be wary of it.
And could I add a
Thank
couple
you.
things?
Absolutely.
One area that we want to be careful about oversharing may seem that it is just benign. Where'd you go to high school? What was your mascot? What's your favorite food? What is your pet's name? Those kinds of questions may seem familiar to some of us because those are the security questions if you've forgotten your password or if you're using multi-factor and they have that additional question later on in your login process. If you're sharing those online, guess what? Those answers are being mined and put into profiles about each of us so that every time we share something like that, it is now able to be used to possibly reset those passwords. For example, and this will never be used against me because I'll never use it for a password. The high school I went to had a panther as the mascot. So if I ever chose that as my question, because you don't get to choose your question, but you do get to choose your response, I would never put something like panther. I would do something like black cat. So that even if they found out what high school I went to, it is not associated with it, but it's close enough that I'm going to remember my answer. And again, that's not one I'd ever use. So you don't get to keep that one on me.
Oh, that's a very, very, very good suggestion. And for all of you who are attending virtually, we're going to have a Q&A session. So as the panelists are talking, if you have any questions, please feel free to write it in the chat. We have Allison who's going to be assisting us with monitoring the chat so we can make sure that we answer your questions as we get to the end of this. All right. So speaking of staying safe online, I have a question about multi-factor authentication. So it's one of those things that always pops up every now and then, especially as we are employees of Franklin University, we have to do it. So what role does it play in improving online safety and why do so many people avoid using it? Who wants to take that one?
I'll jump in there. Oh, John, go ahead.
When I started programming in 1979, I was told that passwords were going away. We were not going to have passwords anymore because they were too easy to break into things, and yet still we're using IDs and passwords. Multi-factor authentication, whether it's sending a text message, sending an email, an authenticator application on your phone, is the best way to provide additional protection to an ID and a password. The problem is that it's another step. It's another hoop to jump through. And we want the convenience, we want the speed, we want the ease of use, but we also want the security. We don't want somebody to be able to if they do guess a password or have a password from another system that we, have done the bad thing and reuse a password across multiple systems, which we all do to some extent, probably. Multi-factor authentication is one of the best next steps to make that process of authenticating yourself, of identifying yourself, more secure. But it is another step to have to go through.
And very frustrating, especially when we change phones. I just had to do this last week. Boy, every single system has to be reset. In addition, if the power goes out, we have other issues, right? Or if our cell service is interrupted. But what multi-factor does is it allows us to authenticate ourselves with another means that is not that login and password. So that if somebody does not have physical access to our phone, they can't then brute force into an account because they're not going to have that other piece of the login process. But if they do have access to us and our phone, obviously they'd be able to bypass that. But that's very rare. And that's why adding those authentication measures to have more layers is the best possible practice, because it makes it much more difficult, because nobody can just spoof that.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm going to ask Brian to take this one. So we've been talking about multi-factor authentication. Let's actually talk about personal devices, our cell phones. So what steps should people take to secure their personal devices, like tablets, smartphones, even smart home tech? What should be done?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So we all have these devices that we rely on so much. Our entire lives are on them. All of our banking information, our family's information, everything that we have going on in our lives are there, right? So number one, just maintaining custody of it. Make sure you have it locked down as well, so that the lock screen locks within seconds, as opposed to leaving it completely unlocked. If you just leave it out, somebody can open it up. There are, just about every brand, whether it's Samsung or Apple, now has that integral security system, whether it's facial recognition or using your thumb to open it or something like that. So having those in place as well to make sure they lock those down. And you can do the same thing for your tablets and being able to ensure you lock those down as well. And then even from that, having the pins, requiring a pin to open it is very important and vital as well. And then once it is opened, having multi-factor authentication for some of those information. Even if you have your phone open, somebody goes to get into your bank account, they're not going to be able to get into it without having additional information. And it's of course, it's that convenience of saving all of your passwords in your phone and saving your credit card information right in your phone. But then again, if you do lose your phone, that then allows people to go and access all of those. So I see there's a question here. And talk about enforcement being permitted to use biometrics. Yeah, so one of the things for my job, we're dealing with this right now. Actually, just sent a message about it. Getting biometrics from an individual we're trying to execute a search warrant on a particular device is something that is now the law has to catch up with. In the last several years, it's gotten better. Usually we draft that right into the affidavits that we write. And now they're even allowing us to make it more simple and just doing a subpoena to say, you will provide the biometrics to get into it. But increasingly, almost every device now has a biometric security with it. So it's great for all of us. It's more difficult for law enforcement, but it is not insurmountable. So we're able to do that for sure. But on your personal devices, it is, again, it comes down to convenience, like Dr. Denise has just mentioned about the inconvenience of having the multi-factor. Taking an extra couple of seconds can really save you hours upon hours of frustration when somebody is able to get into your account, whether it's a social media account, which, hey, oh, well, your Facebook got hacked. But if they get into your bank account and are able to move all of your money around or make changes in that, that's a significant problem. Again, that could have been avoided if you just installed the multi-factor authentication, and it takes you a couple extra seconds, but the little less convenience is a lot more security when it comes to this, because it is increasingly every day we're living more and more online, and so we become more vulnerable.
And adding what Brian just said, with even if it's just your social media getting hacked, how embarrassing would it be if somebody posted something that was culturally incorrect or offensive? And with our cancel culture, even if it wasn't you who posted it, the fact that it's presumed to be you could very well lose your job or have other negative consequences. If it's a threat, you could be investigated and arrested. So there, no matter what it is, even if you think I have nothing to steal, I have nothing worthwhile, your identity or using your identity to get to somebody else of higher target and value that you are connected to is always a potential target of any kind of hacker.
This is really good. And it's actually a good segue into the next question that I have. And I actually want each of you to answer this one. And this is about parents and educators. So how can parents and educators teach their kids, teach teens, even college students, how to develop safe online habits early?
I'll go first for this one. I've got two teenage daughters, so I have tried to instill in them from the very beginning when I gave them, and I sound like a parent now, right? But I gave them the first tablets when they were like 10 years old and eventually got them cell phones. But as a single father, it's also my convenience of them having phones, right? But teaching them early on of the same concepts we just talked about, locking their phones down, making sure they maintain custody of it, making sure that they have the password, they're not sharing their password with their friends. And if they do, they need to let me know so that we can change that. And it just communication and being able to let them feel comfortable coming to me and saying, somebody just had a weird conversation with me on Roblox and I don't like it. I feel uncomfortable. Then I know, and I can take those steps necessary to report that individual. But being able to lock down their accounts, limit their social media, teach them what they can post, what they shouldn't post, and those same concepts of oversharing. And thankfully, knock on wood here, I think I've been pretty successful in teaching my daughters that. But it's also something I continue to teach in my classes too, of being that awareness of don't trust anybody. If you're not going to give something out in the real world, don't give it online because you don't know who is on the other end of that phone. I'd be skeptical of everybody. If they tell you they're 13, they're probably not. It's probably some 50-year-old guy hiding, in his basement. So let's not share information with anybody at all, period. And yeah, I've got them pretty paranoid, but it's worked, I think, in doing that.
Thank you. John, Denise, Dr. Denise?
Or why
I'll-
don't we let John go first and then I'll go after him? All right.
I'll say that I'm glad I don't have teenage kids anymore, but I do have granddaughters who are just about the age they're going to start getting phones. I think telling stories. I think telling, and the challenge of communicating between parents and children is sometimes difficult because children don't want to hear stories from their parents. But maybe they will listen to a message from an uncle or a message from an aunt or a message from a grandparent. So telling stories. Yeah, I heard the other day that this happened to this kid, and that was such a terrible thing. And they thought that they were talking, as you said, to a 13-year-old, and it was actually some old guy. And how yucky is that? And so to be able to cast a story and cast it in their terms. And again, for parents, again, the challenge of parents, I think kids always, it's like a Peanuts cartoon where the kids are always, the parents sound like wah, 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 wah. But coming from someone else, a family member, a friend, maybe a grandparent, maybe that has more impact on those young people.
Thank
And I
you.
think
Dr. Denise?
Sorry, I think one of the best things we can do is to emulate the best practices we want them to be able to see and learn. So if we are living that appropriate cyber and IT hygiene, that's going to help. One of the things that every single person on this call today should do, if you do not have antivirus on your phone, get it now. There are free versions. There are many good versions. And I advocate going to the App Store for your device because those are the programs that are meant to work with your device. Go for any of the brand name ones that have large numbers that have associated with them, including AVG, Avast, Malwarebytes, those kinds of things. The one I do advise against, while it is a good program, I do not advocate for Kaspersky because it's a Russian-owned product, and there could be issues with our nation states having issues. So I don't advocate that one, but definitely any of the other free ones. And making sure that, as Brian mentioned, making sure you have physical possession of the device. I'm not a big fan of the biometric, put your face in front and have it be opened, because if somebody grabs your phone, they just aim it at you. It's now open. They can go do what they want to do. I have a long pass key. I have the longest pass key that I'm allowed to have in Android. And I know it takes longer. And if I typo, I have to start over, but it also prevents anyone from getting in. The other thing I would say too with your phone is wipe off that front screen periodically, because if you're only ever hitting your pass key, guess where the oils on your skin are going to show that you're always hitting those same areas. So while maybe if you only have a 4-digit passcode and you only hit a couple of different areas, it's not that difficult for them to try to figure out what your passcode is and gain access to your device.
Thank
And
you.
if-
I love
and
that
if-
the questions are coming in. John, were you going to add something?
I was going to say, if Dr. Bergstrom seems a bit paranoid, it's because that everybody in cybersecurity actually is a little bit clinically paranoid about these things. It is a dangerous world, and I don't want to scare anyone, but there are many different things that can go wrong. And it sounds like, oh, that's just extreme. Well, no, it really isn't.
No, that's true. And in fact, I've worked on 14 FBI joint task forces in digital forensics. I've been a civilian consultant. And in the last 8 of those, cell phones were all a part of it because even in an auto accident, which I was not on an auto accident, but even in an auto accident, your cell phone could become part of the investigation if there is the presumption that you were distracted when driving. So it's very important that we are maintaining good device hygiene, that we are not using them for things that we shouldn't, that we are cognizant of what can happen and go wrong. And if we would not want our grandmother or granddaughter or grandfather or grandson to see what we're doing online, you shouldn't be doing it, not on your phone, not on your computer, not at all.
Thank you. And there was one question that actually piggybacks off of what we were talking about in terms of teaching your children and teens about being safe online. But it's the reverse. It says, what suggestions do you have to teach parents or older relatives or older friends how to stay safe online? One of the things that we know is that there are a lot of scams that actually target the older population, and many of them they just don't know, so they are very susceptible to that. So, what can we do to tell our grandparents, our parents, how to stay safe online?
I think the big thing is the awareness and the amount of scams that are happening right now. I saw somebody made a comment, or I go to YouTube, put in there, elder scams or gold bar scams, crypto scams, things like that. And there's just, it is, there's no shortage of scams that are out there. These criminals that are coming up with these ideas are very novel, and they work, unfortunately, and they continue to work. And people have lost significant amount of money over that. So we need to teach that and be aware of these types of activities that are happening. And particularly when it comes to the elder folks, they'll call and say, "Oh, it's my, your grandson, and I'm in jail, and you need to send money for bail." And or, "Oh, I just erroneously sent you this money. Can you go to this ATM, crypto ATM, and transfer this money back to me," and things like that are happening. And so getting the information out there, education is key, and being able to tell them. And in the same way, their family members should be going with them to the banks and putting that warning on it. If grandma comes in and tries to withdraw $10,000, there should be somebody else that's getting notified as well, so that there's kind of that second eyes on that to say, "Hey, wait a minute, this sounds like it could be a scam." Some banks that I've seen are very good at that, in notifying family members and asking those questions like, wait a minute, what are you doing with this money?" And then they'll tell them, and they'll say, "Yeah, that's a scam," and they'll stop it. But some banks don't pay attention and don't necessarily see it. So education is definitely key.
And following up on what Brian just said, having a passphrase or password with your family members. So if that person's afraid, well, what if it really is legitimate? What is the passphrase? So if that person says snap crackle pop, and that is one of your childhood memories with them of eating that cereal on Saturday mornings in front of cartoons or something, they now know that really is legitimate. That's that person. But if they can't come up with that phrase, and make sure it's not on your social media, it's not something you talk about at family gatherings regularly, because even families can have those kinds of issues. But make sure between any of these young people and the adults that may be the ones asked for assistance, that code word is used. Also, just like with our kids, if somebody shows up saying, "Hey, your mom sent me or your dad sent me," what is that passcode or passphrase that they need to be able to say? Obviously, the schools are doing a much better job of locking that down. But what if your kid's at a friend's house or they're in a public place and somebody shows up? So making sure that they have that awareness, because the world the world is amazing and awesome, but it also can be a scary place. And we don't want them to learn about it that way.
We need to make sure that everyone applies the same standards to the online world that they do to the real world. No one would feel comfortable opening their door to someone who came and knocked on the door with a bag over their head. You would know something was wrong. It would trigger these instincts. But yet we get text messages, we get emails all the time, and we look at them without that kind of skepticism. And we need to not trust unsolicited messages that we receive via text. We need to not trust unsolicited messages that we receive via email, in the same way that we wouldn't trust someone coming to the door with a bag over their head, because we simply don't know. We cannot know when we get a text message, when we get an email, unless we're expecting it. we can't know that it's legitimate. And,
Yeah.
we can dig as deep as we want into that, and we can talk about all the details, but that's the essence of it. We want to be nice, we want to be friendly, we want to be accepting, but we just simply in today's world cannot trust the information coming to us from texts and emails, unsolicited messages, things we're not expecting.
Thank you.
Excellent point.
Let's keep
Excellent point.
keep moving because I'm curious. A lot of us travel. We all been at an airport at some point in time. If people like Starbucks, they like to go to Starbucks. One of the things that we know that all of those places have in common are public Wi-Fi. And there's also shared computers. So what are some best practices for safely using public Wi-Fi and shared computers?
Denise is going to say don't.
Yeah, don't. That's the safest thing, right?
Absolutely.
Don't.
Yeah, and you,
Other than
Everybody
that,
hear that? Don't do it.
VPN. Yeah,
Get your personal hotspot and use that.
yes, yes.
exactly.
Use your cell phone hotspot, use a VPN,
Yeah.
any place that you have to authenticate. So it's one thing if you're checking your flight time and you're just doing a search. But remember, anytime you're on wireless, it is a two-way data exchange. And so the air is the medium. So anybody that's in proximity to you can be sniffing what is being done on your computer and your interchanges with the internet. And what's called a man-in-the-middle attack is so easy to set up. All they have to do is change their ID on their hotspot, their phone, their actual physical device, whatever it happens to be, to mimic what the legitimate hotspot is. And your phone's going to potentially connect to it or your computer or your tablet. And everything that you send, they're now getting a copy of. And even if you send it encrypted, they still can have a copy. And all they need then is the time it takes to decrypt it. Granted, the stronger the encryption, the harder it'll be to decrypt. But if you've initiated everything in that session, including the transmission of the keys to encrypt and decrypt, they now have a copy and they can read everything in plain text. So as John said, just don't.
Do your banking before you travel. Do your stock
Yes.
market stuff. Do your insurance stuff. Anything that has any financial consequence at all, don't even do it while you're traveling. Wait till you get back home. If you're just surfing, looking to see how old an actor or an actress is, or just Googling something, that's fine. That's not a problem. But just don't do anything with consequences while you're traveling if you can possibly avoid it.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you. And I'm going to start this one off with Brian. And let's talk about deep fakes, AI, which is all over the place. So, in this digital age that we're living in, how can people verify digital content as well as different types of communication? How can they verify that it is authentic? Because what we see nowadays are you can see AI people cooking meals and it's AI generated. You can see images of people and it's AI generated and things like that. So, how can you tell what is authentic versus what is not?
Great question. And I think there's no easy solution. I'd say the easiest thing is just as AI is being used to generate it, AI is being used to detect it. And so there are applications out there that you can use to determine if a photograph or a video is AI generated. There's certainly other aspects, like if you look at some of them, for some reason they're adding an extra finger on their hands in some of the AI generations. And then there's some other aspects of it too. You see like, that's a little off, right? And I know I see it a lot with like military uniforms. They're off, and you're like, yeah, that's AI generated, right? So there's certain ways you can do it. There are some apps. Again, I don't have them off the top of my head right now. But again, we get down to the basics of be skeptical. Be skeptical of everything that you see online, and whether it's in the news media or it's somebody's link somebody sent you or not. It's just go deeper than just the headline. Go deeper than what you're seeing there. Do your research. Find multiple outlets to look at it and see if it's real or not. And that's the biggest problem I see with society today is everybody's just so, polarized, and they're just getting into this kind of echo chamber because they're believing everything they see online and not doing the follow up to look and dig deeper. So, I think as we continue and progress through AI, it's going to, that risk of deep fakes is going to get better and it's going to get worse, and the consequences could be worse as well. And that's why it's so important that we dig deeper and look. And again, we use those technologies to help us also identify those as well. So I believe John had some comments about this question as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask John and Denise to chime in on this one too.
We we have gotten away from traditional vetted sources of news, the news networks, the major publications. As Brian said, we live in an echo chamber where we, in some ways, want to hear the news that reinforces our beliefs. But if we go back and look at those traditional sources, those sources work very hard still to try to vet the information that they're providing is correct and accurate. It is, I won't say it's not possible for an individual to tell whether a particular audio or video has been faked, but is extraordinarily difficult. There are forensic tools out there that it's possible to do that, but they're beyond what most people either want to or could actually do themselves in terms of determining that. So I'd say trusted sources, and trusted sources for me are, major news networks, major newspapers, not some website that I've never heard of before, not even some cable news network that I've not heard before, of trusted sources. And I think maybe we circle back to that as we go forward with this, where the things that we're hearing and seeing, we have trouble trusting. Maybe we depend on other people to vet those things and provide that verification for us.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Dr. Denise, I want you to answer this question and then we'll go around the panel. But if someone suspects that their data or their identity has been compromised, so let's say something happened and they still got their data compromised, what immediate steps should they take?
Well, first off, you want to prepare ahead of time, right? You do not want to be scrambling once your data has been captured or misused. You want to know ahead of time what to do. So you want to prepare yourself. And I'm going to circle back to one of the things that happened earlier this year at Franklin. I apologize, I don't have the link. I don't know if Allison can grab it and drop it in the chat. But our folks in the School of Business did a wonderful presentation on identity theft. And so they had great resources to share. The FBI has phenomenal resources, Small Business Association, but it's making sure that you limit that potential threat once it has occurred. So freezing your credit scores, your credit reports is really important. Most of us do not live in the motion of constantly applying for credit cards and trying to get credit at different stores. So in that interim, there's no reason to have your credit open and available. If it's frozen, somebody else is not going to easily be able to access it. Or you're going to get a notice saying, do you want to unfreeze this? And the answer is no, I didn't apply for that. It's also trying to limit things. When the city of Columbus was hacked, I sent an 18-page document to Brian, who was the head of the Fraternal Order of Police down there, on ways that the officers who were having those issues in their bank accounts drained could protect themselves. Your bank is your advocate. Go to the bank. If you believe that your bank account's been compromised, set up a parallel account so that they can move all the money into it, and every single transaction has to be vetted before it hits that other account. Try to limit your exposure. I also do participate in those these store discount programs. I use fake information. There is no reason to give them my legitimate birthday. There is no reason to give them a lot of that information. So I limit what I share, and I have a standard of fakes that I will use because I want the discount, but I don't want you to know everything about me.
And
Thank
Dr.
you.
Bergstrom does the same thing with her security questions, it turns out.
Yes.
Because, as she said earlier with her, we're Panther versus Black Cat or whatever. So, but you need to provide those security question answers, but you don't need to necessarily provide truth. As long as you remember what the answers are, you can provide any answer that you want.
Yes.
The other thing, for instance, mortgage theft and home theft is a big deal right now. Another major type of scam. Most county government organizations, whether it's the county auditor or the recorder, will actually let you register. And if there are any changes that are made against your property, you can be notified that a new lien has been filed against a property, that a loan has been generated with your property as collateral, and you can be notified of that. So there's lots of things that we can do ahead of time to be able to get ourselves in a position that if this does happen, that we can mitigate the damage.
Yeah, no, excellent points. And I think a couple things, using that fake information to register for all the different, store things that you want to get discounts on, using one email address that you kind of use is like just for those types of promos, things like that. So you're not using your everyday email that you actually use to communicate for those things as well, kind of segregates those. And again, depending on, again, a little bit more in depth, there's so many different applications now. You can download a different phone number and use a different phone number on your phone, right? Like different apps that are out there like Flip and Text Now and some of these other ones that allows you to use a different cell phone. It's on your phone. You don't have to give out your real number. You give out a fake number, and that way you're not getting those types of text messages that are tempting to click on, where they're like, oh, is this, a great advertisement that you might have a discount to or things like that. So, and there's a lot of services that are out there, and I'm not going to advocate for any one in particular, but there's a lot of credit monitoring services that are worthwhile. And it's worth paying that $10 a month or whatever it is. And as was mentioned by Dr. Bergstrom, is the bank's your advocate. So if you suspect something, call them very quickly, let them know. They will reverse the charges. They will put a freeze on everything. They will not allow anything else to go through. And don't be embarrassed, right? A lot of people have this happen soon. They get embarrassed and they wait to report it. It happens to everybody. I've seen FBI agents with many years in get scammed like this. So it happens to everybody. So don't be embarrassed. Report it as soon as you suspect something. Get it reported so that they can put that stop on it. And in many cases, if you're not refunded the money, then but right away we can try to investigate it, try to stop it, and get it back. Even in some of these crypto scams, I think we've got up to 72 hours in some cases to get the money back. So I encourage you to don't be embarrassed. It happens to everybody. Get it reported right away, and we can, take those steps necessary to get the money back.
And to follow up on what Brian said, not just to not be embarrassed, but don't hesitate on reporting it, but hesitate on reacting to a message, a link, something like that. We get too busy. We're about to get into the holiday season. When we don't take our due diligence and take a moment and take a breath and realize whether or not we really want to click on something or open an attachment, especially when we think someone's sending us a Christmas card, that's nice. They all end up in my garbage because I'm not clicking on anything. I don't care that it's the holiday season. I don't do it. That's just a great way to get folks to do that. Also on social media, you might have been seeing a preponderance of these huge messages where it's got a cute picture and it starts with a teaser line and it says read the first comment for the rest of the story. No way in hell am I clicking that comment. That is trying to capture information about you, seeing who will click on it, who are you connected to. Again, adding that information to a repository. You just don't want to do it because once you click, you don't know what that is going to launch. It could be launching something to your system. You could be accessing a portal that's now going to download something onto your device. You could be sharing the details of what is open in your RAM or your cache memory and sharing it with them because you don't know what instructions are behind that link. So please just don't click it.
Yeah, don't click any link. If you get emailed a link, don't click it. If it's from your bank saying, oh, click this link, you need to update your account information, do not do it. Call the bank and confirm that it's them first. Any link is going to should be suspect at this point is what you need to think about, and don't click anything. As John said, you're not going to answer the door to somebody, some stranger knocking on your door at 3 a.m. Treat it the same way, right? An unknown email address sends you something, and it may look like your bank, but it may be a bit off. Don't trust it. Most banks do not send you anything like that, and they will tell you that they don't do that.
And the more urgent it seems, the
Yes.
more immediacy it has associated with it, the more critical it seems, the more emotional engagement that they try to push at you, the more likely it is to be something nefarious, because that's the essence of social engineering, is to try to make you think, oh, I need to do this right away. Oh, this is important. I need to do this. Oh, they're going to arrest me and send me to jail. And saying that sounds crazy, right? That somebody's going to come to my door and arrest me and take me away if I don't click on this message, or if I don't go to the store and buy gift cards and scratch off the numbers off the back and read them to somebody. That sounds crazy, but given the emotional attachment that these folks can build, these very carefully crafted interactions and messages, sometimes over the course of several messages, even through different media, that's the business that they're in, is taking your money.
Thank you. So basically, what you're telling everybody to be, don't click on the links,
Don't
Be
click on links.
paranoid. Use multi-factor authentication.
Yes,
Well,
let's go
Yes.
back
it's not
to
just be paranoid, but yeah.
let's go back to the flip phone days and just
Yeah.
no more internet on your hands, and then we should be fine.
Yeah, just be discerning, right? And it's also think back to the old principle, garbage in, garbage out. If you accept that into your device, you've got consequences. You accept it into your mind, you know, just the same things. If we don't want it stored or seen by our grandchildren or grandparents, we shouldn't be looking at it either. So that's a way to just kind of keep yourself out of a lot of trouble. And if you start to feel that in your gut that, okay, this is a little questionable, back out of it. That's not something you should be doing.
Very
Absolutely.
good suggestions. So we're at 12:46. There are some questions in the chat. So I want to get through these. If you are attending and you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat as well. We'll try to get through as many as possible. The one that's up here right now is the question is about video games. So they say, what about video games that you have to pay to play? How do you know if they are legit?
You don't. Bottom
Yeah.
line. And when you download, you're going to download that application on your phone. You don't know what's running on the back end of that. Who created
Yeah.
it? What country is it from? What kind of data are they collecting from you? Probably everything you're doing online, so that they can now market to you and send you everything, because they're seeing everything that you do online now. And so
Yep.
it is you're like was mentioned, right? You're basically opening up your front door and letting anybody come in and look in your house and look at your private information in your home and look at your pictures, and just you got to equate it the same way.
And stay in your living room, right? Not leave, right? They come in the door
Yeah,
and they don't leave, right? They're
yes,
still sitting there.
exactly.
Yep. And you may think it's only $1 for that game, but you just gave them access to your credit card or your PayPal account or your Apple Pay or whatever it happens to be. You may assume you're only giving them access to $1, but you're giving them access to so much more, and you bought it through a legitimate means, which means it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get that money back to you if you even can. So
Yeah.
just don't do it. The other thing about video games, though, parents, we have a responsibility. Those video games, whether they be separate consoles or on phones or anything else, oftentimes have separate chat abilities. And while your child may not have a data plan to do different things, they may have the ability through these games that we've authorized and allowed them to have. Predators are in those games. It's not just kids. And they're grooming children so that they can then become victims. And they are the most important thing in our world. And we cannot at all not be vigilant. We have to be 100% vigilant all the time when it comes to our kids' safety, because all it takes is looking away for a moment or one misstep or allowing conversations to continue that shouldn't, and our child's being groomed. And maybe it's not that predator because maybe we stop it in time, but that grooming material has been laid out. And so now the next person who's going to start trying to groom them, there's already a comfort and a familiarity with some of the questions, some of the actions, some of the behaviors. We cannot just take a break when it comes to our kids.
Thank
Yes.
you. Here's another question that we have. How do you remove your personal information, such as your address and past addresses, from public websites such as like peoplefinder.com and whitepages.com?
You move to the European Union because they have laws that effectively forget me kinds of laws. We don't have the legislation in this country that forces organizations to remove the details that they've gathered. Hopefully someday we will, but you know you bring up a very important point. It's once the information's out there, the data aggregators, ChoicePoint and others have a frightening amount of individual information about all of us that they are charging big bucks for, and corporations are more than happy to pay those dollars to get that information for marketing purposes. But anybody with what is perceived to be a legitimate business need can pay the money to ChoicePoint or the other aggregators and get all of that information. And right now there is nothing in place that prevents that business from going forward.
Yep. And
So there
actually,
are
sorry, go ahead, Brian.
so there are some again services out there that you can pay for this. I subscribe to one of them because I do a lot of training on swatting for law enforcement, and this is what those swatters love to do. They love to get your personal information, and so I paid for this service. It's called deleteme.com, and they go in and will remove all of your personal data from those different websites. And knock on wood, I've been successful, and it's been very good for me. It's worked. I have not been swatted or anything else. But again, there's a fee with that. But that's one of those, small price to pay again that's going to help protect your information. It's a very robust system, but there are some other companies out there. That's just one I decided to go with. So again, it's one of those things. It's worth it, and when it comes down to it. So just as technology is bad and nefarious in some ways, it can also help us, and that's one of those services I suggest everybody gets it, and that's why I tell everybody I work with to pay it and use it, because it's going to help be helpful.
Thank you.
Especially
You
as
said
these
that was
AI
called
models are.
deleteme.com?
DeleteMe.com, yeah. Is
All
the-
right. Thank
Yeah.
you. Here's another question. What about, so when we were talking about public Wi-Fi, somebody put in the chat about, they asked about public library computers, which we didn't touch on that. So the question is, my understanding is that public libraries have their PC set up to wipe all logins, search history, etc. after a user logs out. Is that true? And is that enough?
No, it's not true. I don't think it's true. I can tell you from experience too, that even if it is true that they have that set up, there are even kids out there that are so tech savvy, they will be able to go in and hack into those systems and change that setting in order to do that. And specifically to steal information from people that log into those library Wi-Fi, library computers. So yeah, again, that's, again, equate that to using a public phone. Anybody's going to have access to it. I would not use a library computer to do any of your personal banking or anything else, with that. Any kind of personal information you should not put into any public computer, period.
Thank you. This question was actually provided in the chat earlier, and it was about passkeys. So the question is, what are the advantages of passkeys compared to passwords or multi-factor authentication?
So the benefit of a passkey is that you have one like a vault or a locker, as they call it, and all your passwords are stored in it, and you only have to remember one strong password. The benefit of that is only as good as the strength of that particular vault. So it's all your eggs in one basket. So instead of them hacking you on 20 different devices potentially, all they need to focus on is one to get access to those 20 different devices. So if you have faith in that company, in that organization, in their ability to keep you safe, that's great. I don't subscribe to one. I know a lot of people who do and love them. My husband actually does. I actually put in strong passwords, and I go with a passphrase myself. So something much longer, but easier to remember, and keep it as strong and secure as I can, because length has been shown to be even more important than the strong password with the numbers, the alphanumerics, and other things. It's length because of how long it would take a device to be able to run through all the possible combinations and identify that as the password. So I don't buy into them, but my husband does, and so he's a cybersecurity person too. That's basically all your comfort in the company.
So piggybacking off of that, then, is having Google save and autofill your password safe, or is it better to just type your user password each time manually?
Absolutely do it manually, because anything that you're having it save, and also that brings up a great point. Don't use Google or other applications to log into other applications, because now they're sharing those credentials back and forth. And if you use Google to log into everything, guess what? Google now has access to everything. So all anyone needs to do, hack your Google account, and you've just given them the smorgasbord of all the things that you've accessed.
Thank you. All right. So as we've been talking, some more questions have been coming in. So let me get to these. What are your thoughts about credit cards, or adding credit cards to like an Apple Pay or your Google Wallet or some other pay platforms? And what about having those pay platforms linked to your bank account?
Well, if you
I
want
don't.
to leave your credit card out lying on the street for somebody to find it and use it, it's not quite that bad, but it is, again, we talk about in cybersecurity, we talk about attack surface. How much exposure do we have, and how much exposure do we trade for the convenience that we get? And there is always a trade-off, right? And so I would not enter my credit card number anywhere that I'm not willing to lose it. Now, the good news with credit cards is I'm limited in terms of the exposure if it's not my use, if it's a non-legitimate use. But there's all the inconvenience of having to cancel the card and having to have it replaced. And so I would say if you're going to use a credit card online, you enter the 16-digit number when you need it.
That's what I do. And I also only use one credit card online. I have multiple credit cards and I use one online. And then once I get the statement, I actually check it over. Do not just look for large amounts. Look for the $1, the $2, the $10, because oftentimes those are seed amounts for a hacker, criminal, anyone who's gotten access to your information to do a trial run, because credit cards are run by bots. And those bots are looking at your past behavior and they're associating past behavior with what is appropriate for you to do. A small charge going from a company is approval of a small charge going to that company. You've now set up a pattern of doing business with that type of business or that specific company. For example, you'd never get away with trying to charge $20,000 of makeup to me ever in your life. But in the past, when I've co-owned a construction company, $20,000 on a Home Depot card, that was a typical Tuesday because we were building houses with that and they were paying it off and putting it back in. So it learns your patterns. And if you allow that charge to go through without objecting to it, and I know it takes time, but calling up the company, putting in a challenge, making sure that that is a legitimate charge, it's learning that that's a legitimate charge and you may miss it the next time and they're just going to keep putting them through because it went through successfully.
Thanks. Here's an interesting question. I'm not going to call the person out, but they ask, how can you tell if a website is the correct one? And this person, they said they had a problem with Grubhub, not getting the original site. They found out it was a scam and they got taken for about $200.
They got off easy then.
The idea of always typing in the URL, of your fingers on the keyboard actually entering the keys. One of the great scams recently that I've seen is there are Cyrillic letters, like there's a Cyrillic character that looks very much like our lowercase a, and you can set up a fake website for any website that has an A in its name by using that Cyrillic character, that Russian character for the A. It's an entirely different website. And you can, and any first year programming student can copy all of the information from one website to another and make it look exactly like the real site. Nobody's going to, unless they have a Cyrillic keyboard, nobody's going to actually type that Cyrillic character that looks like a lowercase a. And that's the reason I advocate actually typing in the URL to get to the right place. There are so many different ways that my wife would say these people need chores because they just don't have enough. Of course their chore is stealing our money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have
Yes.
about 2 more minutes here, and there are 2 more questions that I want to get to. So one is about digital ID, because we haven't talked about that. Somebody asked, should we worry about the privacy concerns that may arise with that?
Yes, I believe so. That is tracking everything that you do from the purchases that you make, the type of vehicle you drive, how many miles you're driving. It's tracking your phone and where you go and what you do. Yeah, I would say we should be concerned about those privacy concerns 100%.
Especially if there are biometric elements involved, because then if something is compromised, there's no way I can get any other fingerprints. These are the only fingerprints, these are the only iris patterns I'm ever going to have. And so if that were compromised, then what do I do, right? There are extraordinary circumstances under which I can get my Social Security number reissued. I would not be able to get new biometrics. So
Right.
Yeah. It's the toothpaste in the tube. It's easy to get it out there. Try getting it back in. Just err and caution.
That's a
Exactly.
great analogy. All right. And then this last question, is it worth paying for an upgraded version of McAfee on your phone?
I use the free version of the antivirus that I have, and I've had no issues, but I'm also very conscious of what I do. I don't have credit card numbers stored on my phone. For my bank, I have to log in every single time. For the other thing to keep in mind, I don't have icons and apps for all these different banks and credit cards and things like that. I have to know what they are, go out and type them in and find that. And I only do it from my home computer. I do not do it from my phone. So if someone gets a hold of my phone, it would be a very big inconvenience for me for multi-factor, but they wouldn't get much. So it's be aware. If you're going to put those things out there, I would look at the increased level of security you get from it, because you get a more timely a batch of updates, you get additional monitoring and things like that. I'm pretty good at monitoring my stuff. I've never had a breach yet, and don't plan to have any. So I'm comfortable in my own capabilities, but for most folks, it might be worth that.
But if
And
I were
put it on
going
your
to,
kids' devices.
but if I were going to
Right.
spend that money, I might look at identity theft protection. I might look at the Forget Me website that Brian was talking about earlier. Those might be a more productive use of those funds.
Thank you. I love Janine is in the chat. She says she's going to spend this afternoon deleting everything. I'm sure there's some other people on this call that will be doing the same. To our panelists, we are right at 1:01. Thank you very much for a very, very informative conversation. I actually even learned some things here myself. And so I appreciate you all for sharing your knowledge and teaching us how that ways that we can all stay safe online. For all the attendees, thank you for showing up and participating in the conversation. Thank you for asking some very, very good questions. And that concludes our panel. So panelists, thank you very much. We appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.